Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to fit a brass portal axle kit on the new Mjx H8H 1/8 scale. This is going to require a little bit of modification because there is no proper brass kit. This actually is for a YIKONG 4083 or 4082. There's a little bit of modification. You are going to need some washers, so you're going to need 4 washers. I'll show you where you're going to need those. We're going to need to countersink this hole over here, and you will need some small lock nuts as well. That's and a file as well, because we're going to be filing off this edge over here. The reason we need the washers is because the diameter between here to here is a bit shorter than the original. So let's get started and I'll show you what I've done. So far I've already done the rears. The rears will fit absolutely no problems whatever. The diff covers from the YIKONG will not fit, and I'll explain that later why. But these ones over here will work with a little bit of modification. Now, one of the other things that you're going to come across which is going to be problematic is they've used Loctite in the little hex nuts in here, and I'm going to show you a trick that I use to get that out without stripping anything. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we're going to take this all off in one piece. So you're going to have to get yourself an Allen key and undo the top hex nut, which will take a little bit of time. So let's just start that. And alright, moving on to the bottom one, which is much easier to access. And before I drop that right out, I'm going to need to undo this link over here with a larger Allen key. And just remember, when you're putting this stuff back, to use a bit of Loctite just so it doesn't come loose later down the track. But these come out fairly easy. So alright, so there's our top one. Always keep your screws aside so you don't be hunting around for them later. Pull that link across. I've already taken off the top one, and the bottom one's just got a couple of more tiny threads on there, so I'll just get that off. We will be reusing these, so let's have a look. So that's come out. We'll keep them there so we don't lose them. Keep our Allen keys there. Now this will just slide out in one piece, so it's easy to work with. So let's move on to step 2. Okay, so the next problem you're going to come across is that they have Loctite this little hex nut over here. And if you try and go at it with an Allen wrench, you're going to round it off, so don't even try. The easiest way to overcome this problem, I'm going to show you. It's very nice and easy. Okay, so if you've got a gas stove, that's one easy option that you can choose. If not, you can always use if you've got like a little flame torch, you could use that, or you could even use one of these and heat it up slowly. So in my case, I'm going to use the gas stove. One thing you've got to be very careful of, because this is obviously plastic, and even though we're not going to reuse it, I'm always of the mindset that I keep everything just in case one day I might need this. So I'm going to obviously not melt this and be very, very careful. How we do that is just get a spoon, pop a spoon down over there, pop a spoon over the other side over here, right? And then we're going to go on the gas stop. But before we do that, I'm going to put in a little bit of WD-40. So let me just grab the bottle. Alright, so I've got my WD-40. I'll just put a tiny bit in each end, and that is also going to soak through there into the threads where the thread lock is. and is going to make our job a little bit easier. Don't worry, it's not going to catch on fire or anything like that. So let's get a little tissue and just wipe off the excess residue of that WD-40 so it doesn't cause any problems. And then the next thing, as I said, is I'm going to position this in such a way so that the hole where the hex is, so I can use my hex driver, so it's not that one, it's on this side over here. So I need to heat that over there, which is what's going to happen is it's going to heat up the Loctite, and it's also going to cause an expansion because of the different different rates of expansion in the actual metal there, and that should solve our problem of getting that out without having to strip any nuts and things like that. So as I say, put one over there, one over there. Let me just get myself in a good position so that I can do this properly. And remember, so there's that one over there, so I want that to be facing down. And let's pop that there, pop that there. It is a little bit awkward, but just let that sit there, not for too long, just enough so you heat it up. All right. So trust me, it's not going to cause any damage at all, but it is very important to do this, because I guarantee you, like every single one of the hex nuts on my one was definitely, you can see there, nothing's melted. I'm going to pop that there, turn that off quickly while it's still hot, get into the hex nut, which is on this side over here, and there we go. That's coming out now. All right, so that's obviously very hot, so don't put your fingers on it, otherwise you're going to burn yourself. Pop that over there, and while this is hot, we want to pry that off, because that's actually almost pressed on there. So you could probably get the other spoon, or even like a screwdriver, and that will just come off. I can see it slowly coming off. I'm going to need a pair of pliers. Alright, finally got it off with no problems. There's our hex nut. Let's start undoing these 4 screws over here. Alright, so now I've undo the 4 screws over here. I want to take that out, set that aside. What you're going to find when you look inside here is a circlip. And there are also some shims there, so pay attention and remember where the shims are, because they're going to need to go back. Okay, so here's our circlip. Be careful, because when you are taking it off, it will go flying off somewhere, and you're going to lose it. So just take it off with something that's a little bit sharp on the edge. Watch your fingers, and just gently pry it back. There it is. All right. Pop it down with your other 4 screws so you remember where it is and you don't lose anything. So I'm going to leave everything over there. As I said, there's a shim on top of here and a shim over here. So we're now able to slide this little gear off over here with the shim on top of it. Under here there's a little, what would you call it? Like a little pin that goes through, and we're going to need to take that pin out. So I'm going to just grab my trusty pliers. So you can see there's your pin. I'm going to carefully take that out. And let's grab this. Alright, so again, pop that pin down in a spot that you're not going to lose it. Because the last thing you want to be doing is hunting around the ground trying to find these tiny little things. Just remembering there is a shim there and there is a shim there. So now this drive shaft axle, whatever you want to call it, can now slide out. There's nothing on the other end there. We can pop that down. And what we want to do is very carefully take out the shim, which is right there. Pop that shim down on the ground. There's the second shim over here, which we're going to pop down on the ground there. And the next stage we need to do is we need to get these bearings out, okay? So one of them, again, just gently nurse it around with something that you can pry it out. Don't be too aggressive with it, and it will come out. So there we go. So there's one. This next one over here you can easily get out because you can use your pliers to just come in behind it and pop it forward, and there we go. So now we've got that done. Now, the next step that I want to show you is what we're going to do here, because this is where the problem therein lies, okay? So that's obviously the original piece, and there's your aftermarket brass, right? Almost looks identical, but one issue that you're going to come across is that this is countersunk over here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera properly, and my eyes aren't that great, but I can guarantee you that it is countersunk in there. This is not countersunk, so we're going to need to countersink this with a drill bit, okay? So I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. It's a bit of just going slowly and not aggressively, and eventually you will get there. So let's move on to that step. Okay, so when these are here side by side, let me just see my positioning is good for the camera. So when these are here side by side, it's a good idea just to monitor as you're going that you get that same countersink over there. As you can see over here, that's actually different down the bottom there, so I file that by hand down, which I'll show you. But let's just start by doing the countersink. I will measure out the drill bit size and put it in the description. I might actually just measure it now and tell you what it is, but basically you're going to want to just very carefully and slowly and just countersink this out until we match. And it doesn't take much, so just just a little bit more. Right, so as you can see there, that's now starting to get a countersink in there. All right, which matches our original piece. So that's what you're aiming for, okay? So when you're doing this, what you're going to need to do is test fit, drill, test fit, drill. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do a test fit and we're going to see if it's too tight. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm putting in the bearings. I'm putting in the shim. It's a little bit fiddly because they are so tiny that they're very, very easy to move around. Now the shim that I want, actually, I'm not going to need that one, so actually now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that one back and put that there so I don't lose it. This is the main one that I'm going to need, because I will now slide the axle through here, which is how it goes with the shim. And then obviously we've got that pin, so I've got to put that pin back in to do a test fit. So let's grab that, and here's my pliers. And we'll pop that pin through there. Once that pin's there, that shim that's on top of there, just be careful not to lose it, because I don't actually need it at this point in time. Actually I will, because I'm going to be simulating putting this circlip back. Now the purpose of that countersinking is because your universal joint is going to rub there if you don't, okay? And you're going to know, because the moment you put the circlip back, it's going to just seize up and be very tight, and until you get it to that correct depth, that's what's going to happen. So I can see with this, even without even putting the circlip back in there, it's not right. So I'm going to pause and drill some more. Alright, so I've taken a little bit more off. I don't know if you can see that, but you can really see how the countersink is there now. So I'm going to do another test fit and put my bearings back in here. Put my shim back in the one where the drive shaft goes through. And see that? That shim just popped out. They are so tiny and slippery. You've got to be really careful with these so you don't lose them. Pop that one in there. Let's get this through. It is a little bit awkward, but it is doable. Alright. So the next thing is I need my pin. Pop the pin through. Everything just hops around. Alright, our pin is back through. Pop our gear back on over here, and we should be able to see, you can't really see it much on camera, but there's like a little line there which is where that circlip is going to sit. So what I'm going to do now, pause the camera, get the circlip and do a test fit. This circlip, when you take it out, will expand a bit, so just gently with the pliers, not too aggressively, press it back. Alright, so this is the bit that we really have to be careful, because these circlips just have a tendency to go flying. So I'm going to pop it in position where hopefully I can get the plier on it and nurse it back into the groove there, if all goes well. I don't know, because it is a little bit what's the word, tricky to, because you know everything is so small, to get everything to stay where it's meant to stay. Let's pop that there. That looks like it's just not going to work. I'm going to pause this and get it on. Alright, I think I actually got lucky in the second go there, because that is smooth. That's what you want. Now, without countersinking that hole, and you try and put that circlip back on, it's just going to seize up. Alright, so that's really the most complicated modification that you're going to encounter doing this, which isn't really hard. You saw if I can do it, you can do it. So the next step is just basically reassembling everything. Just make sure that circlip is on properly. From what I can see there, it does look right to me. So let's start the process of reassembly here. The other thing we're going to do is a little bit of filing. So on this end over here, we just simply need to bring out that little axle stub there, take out our gear, pop it down, and you can see, or you probably can't see, but that's a shim. So I've popped that shim down there so I don't lose it, and I've got to now get these bearings out carefully. So this bearing over here is probably, oh no, that's come out nice and easy. This one over here we can do with the pliers by just coming through on this end over here, and it's popped out. Where is it? So the job here is to pop the bearings in, pop the shim back in there. Alright, so the shim in this case went over here because, let's have a look, that's running the top to the top bearing over there. So let me have a look. Actually, let's have a look, that shim's going to go down the bottom there, where that little stub axle is going to slide through. So I need to pop that there. Let me just line that up so it doesn't, if you can see that, that shim's now lined up with that hole, and this has got to drop through here like that. That's got to go through there like that, and then obviously this will come back through here like that. Before I do that, I will put a little bit of grease there, and there's also one last shim over here which has to go back, and that shim will go back over there. So let's get that lined up in place. So that shim's all good. Got a little bit of grease that I'm going to pop in there. So let's pop that down there gently so things don't jolt around. You don't need a heap of grease, but we'll just put a little bit there. Alright, now this is the bit where you just want it slowly, because you want that shim and everything to line up properly. Pop that in, give it a little bit of a turn, and it should just go click into place if all goes well. There we go. Alright, so that was nice and relatively painless. I've got my 4 original screws, which I'm going to put back into place. Alright, so there's the 4 original screws. Let's do them up. Pretty easy. And then I'm going to show you the section that needs to be filed, because it is going to catch the lower control arm. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Nothing too complicated here. A couple of washers will be needed, which I'm going to show you to act as some shims, because of the distance of the upper and lower ball joint, I guess you'd call it. If you look at that there, you can clearly see the brass one is slightly shorter. I don't know if that's on camera. Have I got that right? Yeah, terrible filming. So you can see that's slightly shorter. The workaround for that is just to put a couple of washers, which I'll show you works perfectly. Okay, so let's set that aside, and let's do a little bit of filing. The section that you're going to be filing off is this bit over here. I don't know if the camera is showing that. See how that's poking out? We want to get a file and just file that flat down to the housing. The reason being is, on the original, you can see that that is just completely flat. There's no ridge there on this one over here. So that's the next minor little modification we need to do. So I've just taken a basic flat file, taken the top edge and pop it down again on something. I haven't, as you can see, I haven't got a workshop. I'm just doing this in my kitchen. And we're going to just file this down flat. Alright, so get it in a position where you can work with it, where it's not going to move around. Hold it nice and steady, and slowly file away. I'll come back, I'll do some filing, and I'll show you the end result. So I've just taken a basic flat file, taken the top edge, and pop it down again on something. I haven't, as you can see, I haven't got a workshop. I'm just doing this in my kitchen, and we're going to just file this down flat. Alright, so get it in a position where you can work with it, where it's not going to move around. Hold it nice and steady, and slowly file away. I'll come back, I'll do some filing, and I'll show you the end result. Alright, so as you can see there, I've taken that lip off over here. Okay, so I will do a little test fit and just see how it goes, but I think that's going to be fine. Let's see how we go. Alright, moving back to the actual upper and lower ball joint, you'll see there that there are some, what do you call these? Shims, I guess. Now the problem is, as I said, because of the brass being slightly shorter in diameter, these are not going to be enough. So the workaround for that is I used some washers, which I will measure out the diameter of the washers, but essentially the washers fit perfectly over these, and I just gently with the pliers knock them through. That one in fact just slid over with no resistance, but I noted the top one was just a little bit tighter. Let's see how we go, but I definitely was able to get it through. So I'll get the pliers, and you can see I'm improvising because I'm using a meat cleaver here to knock this in instead of a hammer. Look at that, it goes straight through. So what I've done here is, oh gosh, the camera is really difficult to kind of see, but I've just added an extra washer in there. All right, just that extra little spacing is what we need, and then we can drop this back in like that, upper and lower. So that's perfect. All right, looks totally stock standard. And so the next process is to drop our axle back in. Now my recommendation, because that's dry, and in there I am going to pull off the diff cover, but I'll just pop a little bit of grease on the end of there, so that when it's going back into position, it's got some lubrication in there. And let's just gently turn this, and it should just drop back into place if everything goes to plan. So let's see. Yeah. The other side dropped in nice and easy, but this one, well, with a little bit of struggling, I don't know why, it went back in. So I'm not going to just move it right now in case it shifts, but I'll bring it back around. We lost that. So the next thing that you're going to need is just a very small lock nut. I don't know if that's on camera. And I've already put a little bit of Loctite there just to ensure that it doesn't come loose. And with my pliers and my Allen key, I'll start to put that back, and then I'll get the lower one on, and we'll get the drag link. So that's started. I'll get the bottom one now. bottom one should go straight through because we've filed off that edge down the bottom there. If you don't file that off, the bottom one will not go on. So this is why we went and filed that. So get our nut, pop that on there, and I can get the Allen key on there just to start that thread. And then once it's started, we just need to work out, we don't want to over tighten it because otherwise it's going to put stress on the steering servo. So you want to just tighten it just enough so it's tight, and then back it off maybe half a turn, because remember that Loctite is going to dry. That's nice and loose, so we want to get the top one in a similar setup. So let's get that tightened up, and we'll see. Now there is a little bit of movement in there, but it's not a lot, and I think once the drag link is set up, it's really not that noticeable. And I guess if you were really fussy, you could create some sort of a sleeve to go into the brass, which again is a good option. All right, let's see. So that's tight, but not too tight. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to just maybe nip that up just a tiny bit more down the bottom. Let's see. I want it to be snug, but not. That feels good. So we'll let that dry. The next thing we do is just put back our drag link over here. Now on the other side, the original didn't fit and the package comes with an alternate. I'm going to see if the original one fits on this side, because on the other one the thread was different, and I think it's the same here, the thread's different. Oh, hang on. Is that going back? Oh, that's going back. On the other side, I don't know why, but the original one didn't want to go in, and I used the one that was in the packet. Now, one thing I forgot to do here was put a little bit of Loctite, so I'm going to take that out and just put a tiny bit of Loctite on it. And that's just to ensure that later down the track nothing comes loose and falls out while we're on the trail, which is definitely what we don't want. Right, so as you can see there, I'm wiggling that, and there's really not a lot of room, wiggle room there. There's a tiny bit down the bottom, not too bad actually, considering that this is not, you know, made for this. This comes off YIKONG. Definitely doable, definitely fits. Next thing I'm going to do here is put my 12mm hex back on there. I'm not using the original because unfortunately, when I did the first one, I had to literally hacksaw it off, and hence I showed you that trick with the gas stove, which is what I should have done, but I tried to rush it, and it ended up being more difficult than it should have been. So I'm now going to pop that back on and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright folks, so there you have it. That's the finished product. I can tell you that the rear ones are far less difficult. They will just go straight on. No issues at all. It's just the front one you have to make those tiny little modifications. So remembering a washer at the upper, a washer at the lower, a little bit of filing on the back of the housing, and countersicking the housing where the axle comes through. If you're comfortable doing something like that, I'm no expert, but I was able to figure that out and do it myself, so you could definitely do it. And I think it looks great. As I say, there's a little bit of movement there. I'm going to tighten that down maybe a tiny bit more just to remove that movement, but other than that, for what it is, I could probably later down the track put like a sleeve through the bushing there, maybe like a tighter sleeve, but it's pretty good. I'm happy with it, and I hope this video helped you out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the diff skid plate, center skid plate in the rear one, which I'll end the video by showing you how I did that. And I haven't even taken this thing for a test run. This is just basically, yeah, just trying to see if this modification would work properly, and definitely does. Alright, so I did promise that I'd tell you what size drill bit I've used to do the countersinking. So I've got my calipers here, and I'm going to just measure the shaft on the drill, just so not to waste your time. So that's a 9.2 millimeter drill bit. So that's what you're going to need to give you the perfect size for the countersinking. The little washer that I've used there, as there was 2 on each upper and lower control arm where the ball joints would normally go in a car. The outer diameter of these are 8.4 millimeter, and the inner diameter, let's have a look. Let me just see if I can get this right. Looks about right. So it's about 4.2 millimeter inner diameter on these washers that you're going to need to slide over the existing sleeves that are in there. Now the last thing that you're going to want is the little lock nut for the upper and lower control, and these are just little lock nuts that you can get off AliExpress, eBay, wherever. They are 5.2 millimeter in diameter. The inner diameter of the actual screw that it screws onto, let's actually get one. Right, so I've just popped that on that screw there. So let's measure the diameter of the shaft. So that's a 2.8 inner, well, it has to go into a 2.8 millimeter diameter shaft. So as long as you remember those measurements there, and again, you know, you could improvise with something else. So as I say, what's that, 5.4? Let me zero this out. That was zeroed out. And just make sure that I got that right. 5.3, 5.4 millimeter. So the only other thing I needed was the flat file. So really, when you think about it, there's not a lot that you're going to need to get this job done. As I said, I hope this has helped you out. And yeah, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. So the next little job I'm going to do is fit these skid plates on. So you got the center one, front and rear diffs, and that'll be the front bash plate. So on the packet, it does say there that this is suitable for a YIKONG, where are we? 4102, 4103, 482. It does say there Mjx H8H. So they must have already figured out that this will fit. I just bought it just to, again, you know, if it didn't fit, I'd make it work on something else. But let's fit this up and see what it looks like. All right, so as you can see here, got the brass portals on there, looking really nice. The next job we're going to do is start fitting the front, center, rear, and there's also a bash plate, which I'm assuming goes in here now. I don't know how that's going to work because the power button's under there, so if it's going to restrict that, I'm going to leave that one out. But let's have a look and see what we can do. One thing I will just quickly cover off is that I did buy these diff covers hoping that they would fit this, but unfortunately they aren't going to fit, and the reason being is because the differential lock actually runs through the diff cover itself. So I'm guessing at some stage MJX will release a proper version. I guess I could modify this to work, but you know what, I'm not going to mess around with because something like diff locks and that, I don't want to stuff it up. So I'm going to leave that alone, and this for you know, another project, maybe I'll have it, you know, YIKONG, and I can use them in a different project. So let's get started by doing the center one first, and these seem to be coming out nice and easy. So let's see, hopefully it's going to be a nice simple job without any major complications. The diff covers look, there's a couple of screws there that look like they're a little bit awkward to get to, but let's wait and see. And should look pretty sweet. Alright, so this is our center one, which fits over here. And does it fit? Because it does say that it's meant to fit, but it looks a little bit snug to me. The holes do line up, so let's see if I can bring that in. Interesting, because I don't think this is that going to be long enough to even go through there. Let's have a check. Oh, surprisingly it does, yeah. So you can use the originals. Now what I might do is I might put a little bit of Loctite on that, because just in case that comes out. Now see, did they give me any screws for this? No, they didn't. Because it would be nice to have some flat ones there instead of those countersunk. I'll just see if I've got some flat ones. Alright, so I did find some flat ones, because these ones here are meant to drop into a countersunk hole, and I don't know if that shows up on the camera properly. Anyway, I'm going to pop a little bit of Loctite on this just so it doesn't come out, which I don't think it will, but a tiny bit of Loctite will ensure that that does not happen. And screw that in. I'm not going to go crazy and over tighten it just yet. So there's the originals there, and here's the ones that I've got. We'll just put a little bit of Loctite on each. Pop one down here. That's probably a little bit too much Loctite, so I might just share some with the other one. Put that there, put that there. There she goes. A bit of beauty about the Loctite is that once that sets, it's going to be not like super glue, but it is going to definitely ensure that that will not shake loose in the future when you're out in the trails. So whenever you're doing anything plastic, never over tighten. Always just go gradually, slowly, and just see that, you know, it's working. And yeah, the last thing you want to do is strip out plastic, because once you strip it out, yes, you can use Loctite as a measure to kind of fix the mistake, but yeah, you don't want to get to that point. I'm not going to over tighten that anymore, because I can see it's starting to pull in. It's on there nice and snug. Once that Loctite dries, that's going to be there for a long time. So the next thing I want to do is get onto these diff covers. So from what I can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that I need to get out. Hopefully this is not going to be too complicated. In fact, I don't need to do 4, because I'm really just putting the 2 on, right? So it'll just be this one here and this one over here, and I'm hoping that it fits with no dramas. Let's have a look. So there's one here, and that should go over there like that, and it does perfectly. So that's nice that there was no dramas with that. So I'll pop that one in there, pop that in there, and make sure it's not interfering with anything, which it isn't. Alright, so, and again, I'm not over tightening anything. That looks nice. I'm quite happy with that. Let's see if that comes out in the camera okay. Then we've got the rear one over here. You can see how fast and easy this is to do. And you know, eventually I will, because you should always, whenever you buy something new, take the diff covers off, check that there's enough lubrication in there, because I have found, unfortunately, you know, I'm not saying any particular manufacturer, but pretty much all of them don't put enough lubrication in the differentials, and yeah, you definitely want to check that out, and just manually put some in there just to ensure that you get the longest life out of your investment, because let's face it, these are, you know, an investment. They're not cheap, and it's yeah, something that you want to enjoy for many years. And if you do all the right things in the beginning, then there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't get good use with no mechanical failures. You know, if you're abusing it, obviously you're going to get failure down the track, because nothing is impervious to. Alright, so almost done. Just nipping up the last one over here, just making sure not to over tighten. And I've got to try and figure out with the front one, how is it going to work, because I don't want it to be a pain in the ass over the power button, which I can see it will be, because I'd have to get your finger right under there, and it seems to me that this is where it's meant to go, right up over here, which is interesting, hey? But I guess it does kind of protect it a little bit, but I'll fit it and let's see what it looks like. And if it ends up being an absolute pain, I might leave that one out, I think, because the last thing I want to do is have difficulties every time I'm trying to power this thing on and off. Alright, so there you have it. That's everything that I wanted to get done. Center, front diff, rear diff, front bash plate there. You can get your finger in there to the power button, so I'm going to leave that. It's not too much of a drama, and you know what, I think it actually provides a little bit of protection from the weather, I guess, too, because it's a really odd place to put a power button. So yeah, all in all, I'm really happy with that. Yeah, so you can see that these are YIKONG parts, so they clearly fit the MJX. I just think it looks really nice. Sets it off. Yeah, some people have got mixed opinions about these, you know, that are serious rock crawlers and that. I just think it looks nice. I'm not really into that serious aspect of the hobby. I just like to do this for fun, go out in the trails, you know, when I can, have a bit of enjoyment. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please like and subscribe. So that's what it looks like. I know the lighting's not the best, but just pop this light on. How's that? That's a bit better. So you can see that looks really nice. It has got a bit of a lean to the left. I don't know if that's because the shocks weren't properly bled when it was shipped out. That's something I haven't even looked at, because I've literally unboxed this thing and just kind of parked it, as I tend to do, because I've got so many different projects that I've got that I just find hard to get around to. But eventually I'll sort out the shocks situation. It's probably either oil or maybe just hasn't been bled properly. But these wheels don't come with the MJX. I popped them on. I had them. They're 2.2s. You can get them off AliExpress. Yeah, the rubber's pretty similar to the rubber that comes with the original. There are a bunch of stickers and things like that that I haven't bothered to put on. I don't know, at this stage I like to kind of do things gradually and give it my own personal touch. These, I think I mentioned in the unboxing, are not wide in, but having a look on a closer level, there is the option to put some LEDs there and run it through, which is something that I might consider doing later down the track. But as I say, it doesn't really, it's not a deal breaker for me. So there you have it. There's the Mjx H8H. I will do a follow-up video and take it out for a first trail. But I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.